So as you guys may have heard, it's official news that N-Music bought the Native Instruments and SoundY brands. So for example, here's the blog. Now, all the videos I saw on this topic were just giving you guys the news. They didn't really talk about it. They didn't use critical thinking to do anything, except for Altruist has a really good video. I recommend you guys watch that because he's worked inside of Native Instruments before. But here's the official blog, and I'll link this below. This is from Native Instruments website. So this is an announcement from Nick Williams, CEO of Native Instruments, to our friends, artists, partners, collaborators, and community. After 3 months of hard work and 3 months of extraordinary loyalty from you, I am pleased to share that a definitive agreement has now been signed for Native Instruments to be acquired by N-Music. And I was asking Gemini a lot of things because I want to go deeper with this understanding, because this helps us see the entire marketplace that we're actually in. As a sound designer and plugin developer myself, it's interesting to see the greater, companies that are working at a higher level. So I asked Gemini, and I basically said, what happened to the $300 million of debt? And I said, does N-Music take on that debt? So Gemini broke this down for me. And again, we all have more research to do. I tried to go to the filings, but apparently they get rid of the filings after 2 weeks. So I can't go back to the source filings. It says here, the $300 million debt, N-Music is not taking on the crippling debt anchor. The roughly 250 million euros or 315 million US in debt was a toxic holdover from the leveraged buyout era under private equity firm Francisco Partners, stacked against only about 25 million in annual revenue. Because the massive debt service forced Native Instruments into preliminary insolvency in Germany back in January 2026. The subsequent acquisition by N-Music is essentially a court-supervised asset sale. Long story short, I said, okay, 25 million in annual revenue. And I said, wait, is this for Native Instruments? So basically, I asked it down here. I said, is that revenue just the one company or all the companies combined only doing 25 million? You would think this industry is so huge to where they're just making hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, if Sweetwater is $1 billion company, but Native Instruments and all the subsidiary brands are only pulling in 25 million. Does that not concern you guys in terms of who actually has influence in this marketplace? Because again, there's this thing about, and Ultra West talks about the difference between Akai and Native Instruments and how Akai gain resurgence is because they are the culture and they honor the culture. And when you focus on the product and the culture and what the people want, the company just grows over time. So Ultra West talks about that more specifically. I don't have all the keywords that he has for that explanation. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if Sweetwater is $1 billion brand, Avid is $1 billion brand, and then we look at, SoundY and it's only making 25 million in the year. Does that not concern anybody here? Because what about Splice, $500 million value-weighted company? So how much is Splice pulling in? I have no idea. So maybe the business model is shifting because this company seems so grandiose. They have so many keyboards, so many, releases of contact banks and all these software tools. But if all these companies combined are only doing 25 million, that's, divide 25 divided by 5 companies. Isotope, Plugin Alliance, Brainworks, Native Instruments. So 4 companies. So divide that by 4. They're each pulling in about 5 million a year. You would think these companies are just doing massive numbers. Okay. So, and especially Native Instruments who builds hardware, I assume the hardware margins are a lot smaller than digital software margins. Okay. So this is game, that $25 million figure, depending on the exact financial metric pulled from the UK holding company filings, represents the consolidated total across all of the companies. That's a very big difference between us saying that Native Instruments itself is making 25 in the year. So when they leverage $250 million, which is 10x their yearly revenue, okay, they're trying to put a 10x bet on themselves, okay, across all their companies. So if you guys remember, the private equity came in and they started acquiring these companies, okay? And the goal, I assume, is to bundle up all these companies, raise more money, and just bet 10x on everything. Because now you can raise more money because now you have more stuff to raise money against, more collateral, okay? So I'm not an expert. I don't even want to pretend like I'm an expert. Okay, so it says, because the massive debt service forced Native Instruments into preliminary insolvency in Germany back in January 2026, the subsequent acquisition by N-Music is essentially a court-supervised asset sale. So they basically bought it at a fire sale, meaning a distressed asset is something that you can't just sell. Like, for example, houses on the market right now are just like, they want like $500,000 for like a 1,000 square foot house. Like, the prices are ridiculous. So I think it's called the 5Ds. Forgive me, I'm rough memory here. But when you're trying to sell a house, for example, a lot of people keep cutting the price and cutting the price and cutting the price because it's a distressed asset. They don't know how to make money with the asset, so they have to get rid of it. So the same thing here. It's just that M-Music is the buyer. But what most people are not covering is that according to Gemini, and again, I don't have all the documents, so this is not 100% complete research. You guys have to do your own research. But it says buying the company out of insolvency allows M-Music to acquire the valuable intellectual property and assets, Contact, Tractor, NKS, which is their ecosystem, Isotope, Plugin Alliance, clean of the debt, which means that M-Music got not only a discounted price because they're not going to pay what the company's worth because there's no other bidders, I assume, because that's why they swooped in. It was distressed. And on top of that, they don't have to pay off, the $300 million something worth of debt that this company racked up. So that means M-Music's in the best position to actually make this a profitable venture because now they have the hardware that Akai is known to make, the hardware in general, because M-Music has a bunch of brands, okay? But now they have, let me look up all their brands. All right, so they have DJ brands, they have music production brands, they have instrument brands. So they can incorporate Native Instruments stuff and Isotope stuff in this greater ecosystem of brands. And that is a cool thing to know, but it's also, there is a dark side to that, which is, are we going to get innovation if there's just one company controlling every brand? And maybe I'm exaggerating when I say every brand. Okay, I am exaggerating. But when they control hardware, software, synths, DJ, the audio interfaces, they pretty much own a lot. But that doesn't mean they own everything. Okay, so I got to be careful what I'm saying here in terms of skewing you guys' perception. So I don't want to act like they just own everything. All right, so those are the brands. And I could easily see Air, partnering up with Isotope because Air has really good mixing plugins. They were, I think, formerly seen in Pro Tools, for example. Partner that up with Isotope, no brainer. Akai, I mean, you guys have seen it before. Native Instruments sounds, I think, were put into Akai products like the MPC, if I'm not mistaken. Moog, okay, now we have hardware. I'm curious what they're going to do with the Native Instruments hardware, if they're just going to kind of get rid of it, or if they're going to use that as a way to bring people into the ecosystem. From what I understand, M-Music doesn't have much of a digital ecosystem. Their stuff is hardware, Akai, Air, all this type of stuff. This is all hardware based. They don't really have a digital ecosystem. So I'm curious if they're going to merge these brands or if they're just going to keep everything separate and just own it and control it. We will see. I have no clue where the company is going to go from here. But I asked Gemini to look for the red flags, not just the positive things. Because again, if a company's in this much distress, there's a bigger thing that we're not talking about, a bigger elephant in the room, which is greater than the 10x bet they put on themselves, which is revenue. I mean, guys, 25 million across 4 companies that are deemed the world's top companies. And I showed you guys my mastering plugin, and I showed you that compared to Isotope, for example. And if a person like me, who, just spent hardcore focus on a product because I know what producers want, and then we outshot, in my opinion, we outperformed a company that has, I've been to their headquarters, Isotope headquarters. They have, or at least the old headquarters in Cambridge. I'm talking about sectors of employees. Yeah, like 50 employees here, 50 employees here, 50 over there, 50 over there. And they deliver Ozone 11. I'm talking about specifically Ozone 11. If you guys haven't heard, let me just show you guys. All right, so I'm showing you guys this because when I did a comparison of my mastering plugin against Ozone 11, specifically 11, I haven't gotten 12, I was shocked that this is deemed the industry standard. And if this is the industry standard where they had sectors of employees, I'm talking 50 here, 50 there, 50 there, with a bankroll of millions, and a simple guy like myself who just spends all his focus on getting the best quality. Okay, so here's the original. I just got to show you guys so you understand what I'm saying here. Here's the original. Yeah, I'm feeling myself, baby, if you can tell. Tell me that you love me, call me the bigger veil. And when you gotta hit me, just hit me on the step. Just hit me on the step. Cause when it come to money, baby, I swim. Now we're gonna put on Isotopes. I want you guys to listen to how dramatically poured this sounds. Just hit me on the step. Cause when it come to money, baby, I swim with the whales. Yeah, I'm feeling myself, baby, if you can tell. Tell me that you love me, call me. All right, so that's their assisted mastering tool. I just hit relearn and it did that. Now, I was shocked. I was actually very shocked. I thought I would have a better battle, but that was like... Just hit me on the step, cause when it come to money, baby, I swim with the whales. Yeah, I'm feeling myself, baby, if you can tell. I don't even know. It sounds like the song's just spinning around a trash can. It's hard for me to understand how a company with a bankroll that big can make something like that. That's what showed me the deeper red flags. I said, somebody has taken their foot off of quality assurance. Something happened behind the scenes. So to me, that was the first red flag when it came to Native Instruments and the SoundY, because the products were like, how are you the industry standard? And it's worse than a dude who's just in his bedroom. Like, it made no sense. Okay. So according to Gemini, it says the red flags are the walled garden effect. Basically, because the leverage, how do I explain this in a simpler way? Because they're moving away from the digital conglomerate and more towards the hardware conglomerate, Gemini says there's a red flag in terms of the hardware gating, because we're in the world of AI and everything can be duplicated. So what if they went into the moat territory of just hardware? Okay, now that sounds great for the company because they can make products and don't have to worry about people copying them. But is that great for software developers who are innovative? Is that great for people who are trying to partner? Like the reason my plugins aren't in AAX, because I already know it's about to be political, because now I have to go email their company and ask permission to be in their ecosystem. It's like, why do you have all these gates up for people to develop product? It makes no sense to me. Okay, but they do that the same way Reason, for example. You guys remember Reason Studios, or before it was called Reason Studios, it's called Reason. And for a long time, they didn't have VSTs. That's because they tried to own everything and have proprietary ownership over everything. And it was like, why don't you let developers and other people create stuff? That way it stays fun. But they wanted to control everything, or maybe they just wanted to avoid the VST licensing. I don't know. So my point in saying that is, when you create these walled gardens, it creates the Reason effect, where it's like you're walling yourself off so much you kind of forget what the outside world wants. It's like a kid who never went to public school. He went to private school, and then he goes to public school and loses his mind because he was never introduced to public school in that environment before. And I'm generalizing, okay, with these stories. So the walled garden effect is something that could happen. Now, do I see it happening? It just depends on how InMusic develops their stuff. Like, you just have to simplify it. Is InMusic going to focus on the hardware aspect? You know, put out more MIDI controllers with the sounds in it? Are they going to focus on, the MPCs with more Native Instruments libraries? Because we have to remember, even though these devices are standalone, they have limitations. It's not like the MPCs come with like 5 terabytes of space. And I don't even know computer stuff, but you guys get my gist. Is even if Native Instruments did fully integrate with the MPC, can you even load it up standalone? I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay. I have no idea. I'm not a computer guy. So I guess my question to them is, are we going to lean into the digital releases? Keep doing the Native Instruments thing, just plopping out sounds after sounds after sounds? Or are we going to go for innovative hardware to compete with Korg, Yamaha? Because nothing beats the Korg Kronos, in my opinion. Okay, Roland sounds, for example, impeccable sounds. Like, who is beating that sound? I haven't heard that sound beat ever. The Roland sound, the Korg sound. Some people even vouch for Yamaha. So if we can't beat those basic companies in terms of sound quality, like, what is the goal for this company? Are they trying to go digital, hardware? That's my first question. Because if they're going hardware, they're going to be competing with Yamaha, Korg, and Roland, who already has Roland Cloud, by the way. So, which is a digital equivalent of the hardware. Sounds exactly like the hardware. I'm curious to see what they do with that. Also, I think Native Instruments could do a Roland Cloud type thing and maybe they already have it. I'm not sure. I have to go back to the website. But let's just say they have, because they're putting out so much product, it's hard to know what from what. And I think other people are commenting on this too. When you have like 17 new plugins in the Leap series and the Glaze 3 and it's like, it's so much stuff that has no identity. It'd be easier to just keep it under one roof, create an ecosystem like Roland Cloud where you can just load up all these different libraries instead of download this and download this. Let me see if that is a thing before I speak on it. All right, so this is new to me. I've never heard of this before, the Native Instruments 360. So apparently they do have like a Roland Cloud style system where this explains why they have so many releases. I'm like, it's hard to keep track of like the Unicorda, the Ignition Keys, the Noir, it was hard to keep track of that. But now it explains that they have a subscription service. This does make sense in my opinion. Everything you need to create your best music all in one place. So it even shows mixing plugins in here. So it's basically, I guess, all their stuff for a monthly fee. I've never used it, but I've never heard people use it. So if you guys use it, let me know in the comments below and your experience with this. Let's look at the prices real quick. So let's do monthly. Let's do the highest price. So it's $15 per month. So Roland Cloud's beating them on pricing. $25 a month. and then $55 a month to access. What's the difference? 120 instruments. I just can't see people spending $50 a month just to access a sound. That sounds stupid. But the fact that they even have this available is interesting, because now they're competing with a rolling cloud. So if their ultimate goal is to just acquire assets to put it under this subscription model, that might make sense for the easily sustainable longevity of Native Instruments. But the problem is, though, the marketing. I didn't even know this exists. Also, whoever did the sales page, like, come on, y'all. I didn't know what it was until I went all the way down here. You got to move this to the top. Like, why is this way at the bottom? Like, what the freak? Change this page, y'all. Make it obvious. It doesn't even tell you this is called Native Instruments 360. It just says 360. I had to Google it like 10 times to find out this is the page. Come on, y'all. Do better. This is the top company, or deemed the top company. Like, do better. This is no, detestable. Okay. So yeah, the marketing team needs to fix this ASAP. But outside of all these critiques and different things, I can see a world where you buy an MPC and then that gives you a subscription to their ecosystem of stuff. Okay, whether it's the Native Instrument stuff or whether it's the Kai stuff, and you could download based off of what you like to your machine. Again, I don't know the MPC world in terms of the bigger machines and how much space they have, but I could see that being a thing to where you only download the stuff. Like Logic, when you load up Logic, it comes with the core sounds. But when you go through the presets and you want specific stuff, you have to download it from their servers. Okay, and that's kind of how you expand your sound based on how much space you're willing to sacrifice for that sound. That makes sense. This will sustain them in terms of the attraction towards their hardware, because it's very hard to justify. Let's see what the price of their keyboards is or are, whatever the proper English would be. Let's go hardware. So their machine is 500. That's fair. Wait, the machine plus, okay, is 1,000. What's the difference? I don't know what the difference is. The control though, these keyboards, like, come on, y'all. The problem with the keyboard pricing is that these companies need to have a margin. So I'm guessing, I have no fact behind this, that building hardware, you don't have that much of a margin. This means if I'm only making 30% profit on my keyboards, I need to raise the price to make more money, which leads to people spending $900 for a 61 key MIDI controller. We're talking about a MIDI controller. Now, I assume, because I see a picture of something here, that it now comes with sounds. But when I bought my my little keyboard, I don't think maybe it did come with sounds, but it wasn't in my head to like load up sounds. I was just using the keyboard as a keyboard. I wasn't buying sounds and the keyboard, because they're two separate things. It's not inside the keyboard. The same, like, for example, the Korg Kronos, when you play it, the sounds are inside the keyboard. Okay, I don't know how this works exactly. Maybe they changed it over time. I could be way incorrect, but the way I saw it was like, who is paying $900 for a MIDI controller? Okay, that's like, I don't know. It seems kind of crazy to me. $170 for a 25 key keyboard. Now, $140 for 32 seems a little more fair. But the issue, as Ultra West talked about, is these little digital slider things. Like, if you're doing R&B and stuff like that, you need a pitch wheel. Okay, now they do break occasionally, but like, who is doing digital pitch wheel and mod wheel stuff? Unless you're like a DJ. It doesn't make sense to do that for R&B and stuff. So, not to critique the company, now $280 might be a little more fair for the 61 key. I don't know. That seems very fair, actually. That's a fair price. This is the most fair one. I'm actually shocked that that's pretty fair priced. They even do interfaces. So again, they're trying to inch into the hardware world. Their products are decent. I won't say they're not good. But in the past, it used to be, okay, buy a MIDI controller, and now you have to load it up in your DAW or their app and then play the sounds from the app. It wasn't like from your keyboard. So it was always like an expensive MIDI controller, to my point of view. Now, again, the price down here looks pretty fair. Okay. So with all that being said, that makes sense. If they just, in my opinion, and again, I don't run this company, so I don't know. But in my opinion, it'd be more prudent to market these subscriptions and stop having all these stupid 8,000 subscriptions. What confuses a music producer and an artist is when you go to a site like this and you go to update some instrument or some software, and it's like, okay, here's the regular price. Now here's the price to upgrade to version 2 if you're an existing customer. Here's the price if you're updating from this other version. Here's the other price if you update. It's just like, bruh, keep it easy. You have 5 subscriptions here. 360 Pro, 360 Plus, Isotope Pro, 360 Essentials, Isotope. That's too many. Just build one big thing and say, here's the price for that thing, not 7 things. And here's the 5 prices per thing. That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not here to just give a whole critique, but it just frustrates me because it's the most obvious answer that these companies overlook because they're trying to be fancy. Just give people access to everything. Because ultimately, we're just renting your stuff anyway. We don't own it. So we're paying $25 a month to rent your stuff. We're paying $55 a month to rent your stuff. Why not be honest with people and just say, hey, we're going to give you access to everything at $20 a month. But the reason we charge $20 a month is because when you download this stuff, it actually costs our servers this much a month. So why don't you just be honest with the people and say why you're charging how much you're charging? Because when you look at $55 a month, you're thinking, okay, how am I going to be able to afford $500 a year and I don't even own any of these things at the end of the year? That's stupid. Okay. It's very dumb. So most producers go, okay, I can't justify $55 a month unless I have a business. Well, what business? Where you flip sounds into something, music production business. Okay. Well, now you have to sell people on the justification of when they buy this $55 a month thing, and they don't own it. Now you have to show to them how they can flip that 55 into something a lot greater, like $550 a month. But they don't show this. This is what's failing in the marketing. All right. So in my opinion, for this company to be in the best shape is just be transparent as to why you could charge so much per month. Like if people understand it costs you money to let them download your stuff, when you have gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs and gigs of contact libraries, it's going to cost the server. I don't know their costs. So I'm projecting a little bit here, but it does cost money when people download stuff from us. It's not free. So because of that, just say, here's why the price is what the price is, not just slamming us with this price, this crazy price, in my opinion. $55 a month is actually absurd to rent something. Okay. So that's just my opinion. Okay. So let's go back to Gemini's thoughts because I could rant about that last point forever. The Machine versus the MPC monopoly. For years, Machine and the Akai MPC were the biggest rivals in the pad-based beat production. Now they are owned by the same exact parent company. Consolidating the top competitors in a specific market rarely leads to aggressive innovation. It usually leads to one platform being slowly cannibalized, which we assume Akai is going to win on this one in terms of the Machine versus Akai. Like, if people had a choice, and if we can still implement the same native instrument sounds into the MPC, why wouldn't anybody want a Machine if you could use the authentic Akai MPC and still access the same sounds? Like, the whole culture is around the Akai. I don't know much culture around the Machine. So people are playing the Akai video game more than they're playing the Machine. It's almost like, I'm trying to think of a game that got abandoned. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but you guys can think of a game that was like popping and then everybody just stopped playing it. Okay. So here's another thing about what Gemini thinks. DSP innovation in hardware sells, and music is inheriting the bloated sound-wide catalog, maintaining the complex math. The DSP, basically behind the plugins, the ideas and the math, requires specialized engineering talent and massive R&D overhead. The risk here is that, so they're paying for the employees, basically. That's the risk they're taking. The risk here is that a hardware-first parent company will prioritize milking the existing VST's libraries simply to sell more MIDI controllers and DJ controllers rather than pushing the envelope on the software algorithms themselves, which makes sense because, again, why spend more money on R&D and, what do they call it, headcount, when you can just flip immediately just by merging the two, the digital sounds, and throw that in the hardware and get people to buy the hardware. That's what I would do too. I mean, any sane employee or any sane CEO would do that. All right, so here's the last point. I didn't read this beforehand. It says partnership and marketing freezes despite the positive PR framing. Merging a 400-person Berlin software headquarters with a Rhode Island hardware company guarantees structural consolidation. Redundant marketing, admin, and partnership departments are almost always slashed during these transitions. Any content campaigns, brand collaborations, or sponsorship proposed to Native Instruments prior to this acquisition are likely frozen or completely dead in the water. So they were the ones usually handing that out, not really receiving those. Let me see if there's any more important questions I asked Gemini. So I was looking for a public figure on how much they spent on Native Instruments. There's different sales, and again, I'm not an expert, guys, but there's cash, meaning most people think when they buy a company, you just hand them $100 million cash. Like, that's not how companies are bought most of the time. Most of the time, it's either cash, equity in cash, or just all equity. So in this case, cash would be, hey, I'm buying your company for $100 million. Okay. Cash and equity might say, hey, I only have 20 million. We'll buy your company. We'll give you 1 times your multiple, because that's how much you earn a year, 25 million. We'll give you 25 million for basically a 1 times multiple. But we'll pay you the value of your company over time. So we'll pay you $50,000 a month for the next 50 years or whatever their agreement is. Okay. So that would be more, in my opinion, probably how this went down, because when you have a distressed asset like this, they're hoping anybody kind of buys it. Okay. Because you have people's retirement on the line. You have people's just financial interest on the line. So long story short, I think that's either what happened was a little cash just to show they're serious as a down payment, but then they're going to be potentially giving them, this is all speculation, giving them payments over time. And then you have all equity deals, which is, hey, seller financing, which is like, look, I'm not going to pay you any cash up front. We're actually going to pay you on the back end. We're going to pay you, $1 million every quarter for the next whatever years, because we have to first exploit all of your assets to earn the money, because they're going to have to for sure pay out for payroll. So again, I'm not a business expert. Okay. I just know the basics. And I could just say that it's interesting they didn't publicly say how much they bought it for. All right. So it says, because MMusic is a privately held company owned by Jack O'Donnell, and the transaction is being executed out of a German insolvency court rather than a public stock exchange, they are not legally required to disclose the exact cash amount paid for the assets right away. However, based on the structure of these Phoenix or distressed asset sales, here's how the financials likely played out. So these are just different scenarios. Again, nobody knows until they come out with the truth. Okay. So fire sale pricing, MMusic did not pay anywhere near, according to Gemini, MMusic did not pay anywhere near what Native Instruments was once valued at when private equity firm Francisco Partners bought Native Instruments in 2021. The valuation was massive. But in a preliminary insolvency sale, the buyer is only purchasing the remaining assets, the IP, the patents, and the software code, meaning they're not buying the brand. Okay. Technically, yes, but they're not buying it for the brand power. They're buying it because of the stuff, the products. Okay. Which is a whole different thing. It's like, how do I explain this, y'all? I'm really trying to make this simple. Let's say Walmart owns the building that they're in. Okay. And they also own the name Walmart, where I can buy the Walmart brand, which may also include the building, or I could just buy the building from Walmart and not worry about the brand. Okay, so the same thing here. The building is worth so much. The Walmart brand is worth a lot more because it has a trust factor to it. But the building, I could just buy that and flip it. I don't need the Walmart brand to it. So that's what I think is happening here. All right, so it says the IP patents and software code, not the company's past value. Given the company only brought in about 25 million in revenue recently, because again, that's across 4 brands. To me, that's shocking. That's actually very, very shocking. I never noticed that before, but I always thought that was just Native Instruments. That's across all 4 of the companies, according to Gemini. So MMusic likely acquired the whole SoundWide portfolio, Native Instruments, Isotope, Plugin Alliance, Brainworks, for a fraction of its former worth, which now gives MMusic the ability to dominate the digital space if they give it a moat by pairing it with the hardware. Okay, this will help them survive the AI era. Okay, so wiping the debt, as we discussed earlier. All right, so as it says here, wiping the debt. As we discussed earlier, the primary value of this deal for MMusic is that they get to leave the 250 million in debt behind in the bankrupt corporate shell, which I didn't know that was possible. So I'm learning as we're going. It says whatever undisclosed cash amount MMusic did pay goes directly to the court-appointed insolvency administrator, Tortzen Martini. Okay, so it says cash amount in this case, who then distributes those pennies on the dollar to the creditors before dissolving the old company. Okay, so basically, from my understanding, and I could be reading this way incorrectly, When Native Instruments went to the courts and they had to dissolve or figure out a way to dissolve, Music said, hey, I'll buy a portion of your company to help at least pay a portion of the credit or the debt back to the creditors. So if you guys don't know, this is how, man, there's so much to go into here, y'all. And again, I'm not an expert, so don't listen to me. I remember one time back in the day, let's just say, for example, somebody had a dentist bill, okay, and they didn't pay the dentist bill. So the dentist could chase you down and come to your house to try to find you to get you to pay. Or they can hire debt collectors, and these debt collectors will basically call you or harass you, okay, until they get you to pay and try to scare you into paying. But the business that they're running is, hey, some people even buy lists of people who owe debt. Some people get them for free because they know that if they call long enough, it's a sales team. If they call long enough, they'll get at least 50% of what you owe. Okay. So a company might say, okay, a dentist office, let's say they have $1 million worth of outstanding debts with the customer. They'll sell that debt to somebody like a call center. Again, I'm generalizing because this has to be simple. Okay, I have $1 million worth of debt at my dentist company. I sell it to a debt collector company for $250,000. So I at least get $250,000, and we're just gonna have to take the L on the rest. That company says I can flip this $250,000 because I know if I call it this whole list, if I harass people just long enough, they're going to pay me at least 50%. So they're banking to get not $1 million back, but at least 500,000. So they're trying to flip the $250,000 into 500,000. Hopefully that made sense to somebody. Okay. I know that was a terrible explanation. I didn't think of this beforehand, but that's kind of how I see this. Is the same thing. They're basically saying, okay, and Music is not paying Native Instruments the entire 300 whatever million. They're saying, okay, I'll pay you a little bit because I know I can flip this a little bit into 50% more, 100% more. Okay. And then it says the alpha theta precedent. For context on how Jack O'Donnell approaches these deals, look at his reaction to the Serato acquisition. He has Serato now. Wow, nice. The Serato acquisition a few years ago. Alpha Theta, Pioneer DJ tried to buy Serato for around 59 million. Wow. And O'Donnell aggressively fought that deal, citing anti-competition concerns. Anti-competition concerns? Sir, what are we talking about? Now he's just executed an acquisition that gives him control of Tractor Machine and the NKS Standard, effectively creating the exact type of consolidated market dominance he previously criticized. Like I said before in my other video, Native Instruments to me already seem like a monopoly in what we do. All the developers were going to Native Instruments behind the scenes. You guys may not have seen that, but all the software guys were going to Native Instruments. All the contact developers were all sound designers are moving Native Instruments. It seemed very consolidated on the back end. So the fact that, again, this is very obvious to me, but I'm not. You guys can put two and two together. You have the digital monopoly and you have the hardware. When you combine those two, you basically have control of everything. Okay, so yeah. While the exact dollar figure is hidden behind private equity and insolvency court walls, the reality is that Music bought the crown jewels of music software. I wouldn't say crown jewels of music software at a steep discount, entirely scrubbed off the debt. So it's a big win for Music. I'll definitely say that because they could flip this into whatever they want to flip it into. They now have both sides of the brain, metaphorically speaking. The main question is sustainability. How are we going to sustain this? Akai is the only company I've seen that has mastered cultural relevance. They understand the culture. They honor the culture. They don't exclude the culture. They include the culture. That's why the Akai, that's why people buy the MPC sample and the whatever. It's because it's way deeper than the thing itself. Yes, it's an awesome product. It's also about culture though. And they've mastered that. So if you have the same brains behind what makes Akai successful in the same house of the greater company, Music, and I know there's good people at Music like Ben Lindell, for example. Shout out to Ben Lindell. In Houston, for example, I think he's at Music too. When you have people like that behind the scenes who actually know what the heck's going on, it makes sense for them to grow. Now, I'll say if, because I don't know these people. I've never met Jack. If the greater entity becomes greedy and tries to acquire, at a certain point you go, what's the point of acquiring if we're not just buying customers at that point? We're not buying product and innovation, we're buying customers. But who's going to be the innovative spark to all this thing to keep it sustained? That's the part that nobody thinks about. Everybody's thinking about today. What about 10 years from now? How are we going to compete against AI music? What if, I'm just saying, an AI company put out a keyboard where you can generate your own sounds right on the keyboard. You don't even need to go through a Native Instruments or whoever. You could generate sounds right on your keyboard. Type it in or just talk to it or whatever. You can not only create songs, you could chop up and sample the song right on your keyboard. What happens when that happens? Because these companies have millions of dollars. They could definitely do that if they wanted to. And that would give them a moat against other AI companies. So the only issue they would have is culture. Do they have a defined culture? And I would say, yeah, they have a bubbling culture. I mean, look at AI culture. These people are super excited about AI stuff. They're very passionate people. So I think they need to stop thinking that their competitor is the Native Instruments of the world, is the software developers of the world, and look at the AI companies. They are the real competitor. How are you going to create a moat against somebody who can literally undercut your whole layer of stuff, okay, and go deeper than you to the actual source? That's the problem I think that these companies are not addressing, but we will see in the coming years. I'm going to end this video. I want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe if you're new. Peace.